There are documented cases of people who entered a completely dark, completely silent room in perfect mental health. 72 hours later, they came out different. Not traumatized, not broken. Just different. And none of them could fully explain what happened in there. This isn't a horror story. No one was harmed, no one was forced, they volunteered, and what their brains did, completely alone in total silence, with zero sensory input, is one of the most unsettling things modern neuroscience has ever documented. Because your brain wasn't built for silence. It was built for noise, for light, for constant, unbroken input from the world around it. Take that input away and your brain doesn't rest. It panics. Quietly at first. Then, not quietly at all. Hour 1. You sit down, the door closes, the light goes off. True darkness isn't what you experience when you close your eyes at night. There's always something. A streetlight through the curtains, a glow from your phone, the faint blue tinge of electronics. Your eyes are almost never exposed to absolute zero light. In a true dark room, your eyes are open and seeing nothing. Not black. Nothing. There's no color called nothing. Your visual cortex, the part of your brain that processes everything you see, has never experienced this before. For the first few minutes, it waits. It sends signals forward, asking for input, getting none back. The silence is the same, not quiet. Silent. No traffic. No hum of electronics. No sound of your own breathing bouncing off walls. Just the inside of your own skull. Most participants report the same thing about this first phase. It feels peaceful, almost pleasant. They were wrong about what was coming. By hour 3, something shifts. Your brain has now been waiting for input for several hours. It's received none. Here's what your brain does next, and this is the part that should unsettle you. It starts making things up. Not imagining, not daydreaming, generating. Your visual cortex, starved of real input, begins producing its own signals. Faint at first. Geometric shapes. Pulses of light that aren't there. Patterns that drift across the nothing. This is called phosphene generation. It happens to everyone, always. But here's what makes it disturbing. Your brain doesn't label these images as self-generated. It presents them exactly the same way it presents real visual input. You see them, with your eyes open, in a room with no light, and your brain says, this is real. By hour 6, the sound starts. Tinnitus, a ringing or buzzing in the ears, is one of the most commonly reported early symptoms. Your auditory cortex is doing exactly what your visual cortex did, waiting for input, getting none, generating its own. But it doesn't stop at ringing. Some participants in documented sensory deprivation studies begin hearing voices by hour 8, not whispers, voices, saying recognizable words, sometimes their own name. One researcher noted that participants who heard their name called in the darkness would often answer, out loud, to nothing. And the terrifying part isn't that they heard it, it's that they knew, intellectually, that nobody was there, and they answered anyway. Quick pause here. If you're finding this interesting, a like and subscribe genuinely helps this channel. It takes 2 seconds and it means a lot. Okay, back to it. By hour 12, your sense of your own body begins to dissolve. Your brain builds its understanding of where your body is in space from constant sensory feedback. The pressure of a floor under your feet. The resistance of air against your skin. The sound of your own movement. Remove all of that for long enough, and the map your brain uses to locate your own body starts to degrade. Participants report feeling their limbs detach. Not painfully, just drifting. Some report feeling like they're floating. Some report feeling like they have no body at all. One documented participant described it this way. He said he wasn't sure where he ended and the room began. Think about what that sentence means. He had lost the boundary between himself and the space around him, not metaphorically. By hour 24, time breaks. This one is well documented and consistent across almost every sensory deprivation study ever conducted. Your brain tracks time using environmental cues. Light changing, sounds shifting, temperature fluctuating, body hunger building in a rhythm tied to meal patterns. Remove all of those cues, and your internal clock doesn't just slow down or speed up. It becomes completely unmoored. Participants who entered at noon and were removed after 24 hours would guess they'd been inside for anywhere between 4 hours and 4 days. The guesses weren't clustered around the truth. They were scattered wildly. Time as your brain experiences it isn't a fixed measurement. It's a construction built from environmental input. Take the input away, and the construction collapses. You don't experience time passing. You experience nothing with occasional interruptions. By hour 48, the hallucinations become narrative. This is the stage that researchers find most remarkable and most disturbing. Early hallucinations are simple: shapes, sounds, lights. But by the second day, participants begin experiencing full scenarios, not flashes, stories, with characters, locations, and sequences of events. One participant documented in a 1970s isolation study described a complete, fully realized experience of walking through a city he'd never visited, speaking to people whose faces he could see clearly over what felt like an entire afternoon. He was lying on a floor in a dark room. He knew he was lying on a floor in a dark room, and yet the city felt more real than the floor. This is the point at which the brain's reality generation system stops being a side effect. It becomes the primary experience. By hour 72, something else happens. This is the part that's hardest to explain, and the part that participants struggle most to articulate afterward. The hallucinations don't just continue, they change in character. They become calm. Several participants across multiple studies describe a similar transition in the final phase. The chaos of the earlier hours, the disorientation, the voices, the dissolving body, gives way to something quieter. Some describe it as peace. Some describe it as emptiness. Some describe it as feeling like they'd reached the bottom of something and found it unexpectedly solid. One participant, asked to describe the final hours, said only this: "It felt like meeting something that had always been there, that he'd never been quiet enough to notice." He couldn't say what it was. He said he wasn't sure what was even the right question. Here's what the science says about that. Nothing. The science says nothing about it. What researchers can measure, cortisol levels, brain activity, heart rate, normalizes in the final phase. The body calms down. The storm passes. But what participants experience in that final phase sits outside what instruments can reach. Every researcher who's run extended isolation studies eventually hits this wall. The data ends, the experience continues. And every participant who makes it to 72 hours comes out saying the same category of thing in different words. Something happened in there that I cannot explain. Not something bad, not something good, just something. So here's the question nobody can answer. Was it a breakdown? A glimpse of something real? A construction of a desperate brain? The science can tell you what your visual cortex does when it's starved of input. It cannot tell you what it means when the hallucinations stop being chaotic and start feeling more real than the room you're actually in. You're reading this in a lit room, surrounded by sound, with full sensory input flooding your brain every second. Your brain is calm, anchored, certain of where it is. Take all of that away for 72 hours, and something meets you in the silence. The researchers don't know what it is. The participants don't know what it is. Then the only way to find out is to go in yourself.